Русский? Советский.
Hello everyone, this is Sergei Sputnikoff speaking. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Ushanka Show, when everyone can learn something new about life in the Soviet Union. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи! В эфире программа Ushanka Show. In today's episode, we're going to talk about tourism in Soviet Union and specifically about some bizarre requirements the Soviet tourists had to follow while traveling abroad. And by the way, if you're interested in the topic of Soviet tourism, I already have a playlist which contains 23 videos covering all kind of topics, going to the Black Sea for vacation, traveling abroad on a cruise ship, and many other topics. So a while back I discovered this interesting document called Краткая справка, a short notice or short note, о советских таможенных правилах для советских туристов, выезжающих за границу, about Soviet custom rules for the Soviet tourists that travel abroad. And there's so many interesting details here, weird requirements that we're going to talk about today. But before we begin, let's cover some basics of Soviet tourism. There are basically two ways you could travel around the Soviet Union. The normal way would be to purchase so-called путевка, so that's like a travel voucher, and that would include your stay in a hotel or so-called дом отдыха, the place of rest. So that's your room and board, meals, and a place to stay, and maybe some activities, visiting places of interest, staying on the beach, and so on. So that's, you have to buy путевка. Or you could travel on your own, and that was possible as well. You didn't need to have a permission from the local militia office, but it presented with other challenges, where to stay and so on. So that style of traveling was called путешествовать дикарями, so travel like wildlings. And one of the way you could find a spot somewhere and stay in your own tent, or you rent a place from local. And the most popular vacation destination to travel with путевка, travel voucher, or as the wildlings, дикарями, was the shores of the Black Sea. Once again, if you need to know more details about Soviet tourism, I have all those topics covered in detail in my playlist Soviet Tourism, and link will be below in the comment section. But if a Soviet citizen wanted to travel to other countries, he would face a slew of challenges. It was way more expensive, way more complicated, and even involved KGB. And I already have a video on this topic called KGB had 11 reasons to refuse your trip abroad. Link will be also below in the comment section. So first of all, a Soviet citizen couldn't go on his own to any country. You had to have a путевка, a travel voucher. And путевkas were in short supply, so you had to wait on the waiting list at your place of work or at your local labor union, or you have to have connections, blood, and do exchanges. So if you have access to, for example, deficit items like furniture sets made in Yugoslavia, and some other person had access to travel vouchers, you might do a trade. Hey, I'll get you this furniture without need to wait for 3 years if you'll get me a travel voucher to Yugoslavia or Bulgaria, or even maybe on a cruise in Mediterranean Sea. Second challenge was the cost. Those путевkas were quite expensive. The cheapest one going to like Bulgaria or maybe Poland will set you back about 200 rubles. So with average salary around 150 rubles a month, paying 200 rubles for 10 days in Bulgaria was a pretty expensive proposition. And if you were lucky to get a путевка on a cruise around Europe, it will set you back somewhere between 500 to 800 rubles per person, which was a lot of money back in the Soviet days. And by the way, the topic of the Soviet cruise is already covered on my channel. I have a 2-hour long video where I read diaries of a lady who went on a cruise in the 1970s. And now, if you are lucky to get a путевка, to get approved by KGB, to get approved by your local labor union and your local party department, you are ready to go. Almost. You see, the Soviet government mandated extremely strict limits on amount of money you could take with you going abroad. And of course, no one wanted Soviet rubles in France or England, so you have to exchange currency at home. And the limit was only 30 rubles per person you could exchange into foreign currency, so with using the official rate of exchange, it's about $50. So for your 2-week trip around the Europe, all you could take with you was $50. The official rate of exchange was 60 kopecks for $1 American. So as I said, it comes to $50 for 30 Soviet rubles. And of course, you could try to buy some currency on the black market. The rate of exchange was about 3 to 4 rubles per dollar. But the problem that you could get in serious trouble if you deal with foreign currency in the Soviet Union, Article 88, which was also called the butterfly article because two numbers 8 and 8 next to each other looks like the wings of the butterfly, and you can get into prison for 5 to 10 years dealing with foreign currency in the Soviet Union. So since you couldn't bring enough money with you, of course Soviet people tried to bring some goods along that they could sell for local currency and buy goods they wanted. Because, maybe $50 be enough to buy some souvenirs, but if you want to buy a pair of Levi's jeans, maybe a jacket, maybe a stereo, maybe some other items, $50 was just not enough, even in 1970s. And this is where we arrived to our main topic, this document, Kratkaya Spravka, this short note. And I bet it was created because Soviet tourists were hauling so much stuff with them, tried to sell it while they're on a trip. So they came up with these documents that set strict limits and detailed list of items that were allowed to be taken along while traveling to other countries. Okay, so let's take a look what kind of items Soviet tourists were allowed to have while crossing the border between Soviet Union and other countries. And this is the list of items that were allowed to be brought in or out, and they would be brought back in without paying any tariffs, без пошлина. And the list goes with kind of general description, then I go into details. So it says clothing, shoes, белье всякое. I love that description. Different types of underwear, and different things like tourist or sports style. So if you want to run in the morning, you can bring an additional pair of running shoes. If you're a tourist, you may bring extra backpack. And it says all these items, including cosmetics, makeup and stuff, enough in the quantities that will be adequate to amount of time you planning to stay abroad. And now we're going to detailed description, and you can get idea from this list what Soviet people were trying to smuggle out of the country in order to sell, so they have some additional currency. A, or as we say in Russian, A. Верхний трикотаж из шерсти и синтетического волокна. So it's outwear made from wool or synthetic materials. Interesting description already. So any type of jackets, sweaters, jumpers, pullovers, dresses, skirts. 3 items per person. Б. Платки головные, косынки, шарфы. So headscarves or regular scarves. Quite a few women were still wearing those silly looking, some Americans call them babushkas, but they're not. Babushka, babushka, it's the old lady, grandma. Headscarves is kosynka or platok. Up to only 3 items per person. I guess you can cheat here, so if you bring husband with you, you can bring 3 for yourself and 3 for your husband, but customs may have some questions. And before we move down the list, I just want to mention, imagine you going to Italy or France for a small vacation, and government tells you how much items of clothing you should bring and what type of clothing. Next item, радиоприемник. So it's a portable radio receiver, 1 per family. Next item, fotoapparat. So it's a camera, film camera, 1 item per person. And it looks like several Soviet cameras could fetch pretty decent price in the West, especially probably Zenit brand. So quite often people will bring a camera to take pictures, wink wink, and then we'll try to sell it at the port at some resale shop to get some additional currency. Любительский киносъемочный аппарат. So it's amateur movie camera. To tell you the truth, I never seen anyone using those, and I don't know anyone who actually owned amateur movie camera, but it was allowed to bring 1 per person. Different accessories for film or movie cameras, and it says no more than 1 accessory if you have a camera or movie camera. So that's interesting. If you don't bring a camera, you shouldn't have any accessories to the camera. Портативная пишущая машинка. So portable typewriter. Once again, I don't see any other reason to bring with you a portable typewriter unless you're thinking about selling it. One per person. Музыкальные инструменты, кроме пианино и роялей. That's hilarious. So musical instruments except pianos or grand pianos. So apparently some people tried to take a piano alone. That's hilarious. But they're talking about maybe guitars, maybe saxophone. One item per person. Next item is also interesting. Часы из простого металла. So it's a watch. So it's a hand watches, right? From the basic metal. So you were not allowed to travel wearing a golden watch because obviously you're planning to sell it. But you could bring 2 items per person. So 2 watches. Next item is also interesting. Различные сувениры. Different souvenirs. В разумном количестве, in reasonable quantities. So they didn't specify how many you can do, just reasonable quantities. Once again, do not dare to sell it. Next one is getting even better. Продукты питания, напитки и табачные изделия. So foodstuffs, drinks, and tobacco items. So mostly like cigarettes, because we didn't have cigars in the Soviet Union. Look at that long description. В пределах личной потребности на путь исследования. При этом отдельные виды продуктов, напитков, табачных изделий не должны иметь товарного характера. Общий вес продуктов питания не должен превышать 6 килограммов на одно лицо. I try to do it like American commercials. So it said also, it should be within the limits of your own needs during a trip. So if you like to smoke a pack of cigarettes a day and you travel for 10 days, no more than 10 packs of cigarettes. And then it tells you, and your foodstuffs, drinks, and tobacco goods shouldn't look like they're for sale. So when you're trying to bring a case of cigarettes, I'm not sure if they even sold them by case in the Soviet Union. So it shouldn't be like, the whole entire, I don't remember what the word is, like when there's a 10-pack box. And the weight shouldn't exceed 6 kilograms per person. And then they have additional comments, which basically tells you that they constantly ran into problem. They said the foodstuffs should be no more than 6 kilograms. So people were trying to bring black caviar, 6 kilograms of that, because that was the best probably item to resell in the West. So they made a comment. So one person is allowed to bring 400 grams of black caviar. Спиртоводочное изделие. So alcohol, only 1 liter. And usually our alcohol was sold in half-liter bottles. So you could bring 2 bottles of vodka with you alone. Tobacco goods, табачное изделие, 250 cigarettes or papyroses, or 250 grams of other tobacco products, which I guess you can bring mahorka, just kind of like loose tobacco. So 250 cigarettes, it's kind of a weird number because I believe pack has 20 cigarettes. So you could bring 10, like almost 13 packs of cigarettes along with you. And the bottom, the last line is the most hilarious. Ценные предметы, не упомянутые в настоящей справке, не пропускаются, и разрешения на их провоз не выдаются. Any valuable items that are not mentioned in this spravka, in this note, are not allowed to be going out of the country, and there'll be no permission issued for their moving out of the country. So there's don't even ask us if you have something else that's not mentioned on this list. Okay, now let's take a look at page 2. It says here that items that you bring with you out of the Soviet Union are not allowed to be in the quantities above what was mentioned earlier. You're also not allowed to have any items to give to other people. Вывоз из СССР предметов для передачи третьим лицам запрещен. So it's forbidden to have on you any items that don't belong to you that someone asks you to give to somebody else. On the way back into the USSR, rules were slightly different, so you could bring more items exceeding the quantities mentioned above, and also you could bring items that belong to other people, but in this case you'll have to pay таможенная пошлина, so import tariffs, and you can pay it in a Soviet or foreign currency, but still the general quantity of similar items that could be brought without paying tax or paying tax could not exceed more than twice of the quantities they mentioned above. So if you're allowed to take out one photo camera, you can only bring 2 cameras, and so on. So if you took out 1 pair of pants, you can bring back only 2 pair of pants. Kind of interesting. Okay, now it's probably the most interesting part. So Soviet tourists are allowed to take with them, going out of the country, only following items made from gold, silver, and other precious metals or stones. And as you see, detailed list. So it looks like that's what was the most popular items to smuggle out, because gold is gold everywhere, and people were more than happy to purchase Soviet gold for American currency. So there's the list what you could bring out a single person. So if you have a pocket watch or arm watch that had, made out of gold or had some precious stones, 1 item. 1 wedding ring. 2 rings with stones. So it's probably, of course, for ladies. Then you can have 1 brooch. 1 cologne. So that's like a thing you have on your chest that you can open, has enough pictures. I can't think of the English word cologne in Russian. Medallion, another kind of, looks like a medallion you open. 1 zakolka к шляпе. So I guess if you wear a fancy hat, you can have some precious stone zakolka, like a pin. Only 1 was allowed. 1 bracelet. Only 2 pairs of earrings with stones. Only 1 pair of zaponki, so that's those cufflinks for your shirt. Oh my goodness. Then if you have a whole set for your suit, for your tie, cufflinks and stuff, only 1 set of those. Only 1 for your tie, whatever that thing is called, like pin. Only 1 of those. So everything, see how super detailed. So this is where people are trying to take out goods made from precious stones and precious metals. Same with 2 pairs of glasses if they're made of gold. I've never seen anybody wearing those. Automatic pens and pencils. Only 1 of each. I guess I didn't know that Soviet pens were in such high demand. And also, if you have any jewelry made of silver, no more than 400 grams. So that's go by weight. That's hilarious. And then we have additional comments. So when you bring with you items made from precious metals or precious stones, men have the right to have only items meant for men, and women only items made for women. So if a guy couldn't get earrings, and women shouldn't have items for their ties, because women don't wear ties. And another comment in the same says Soviet citizens temporarily live in Soviet Union allowed to have with them foreign Soviet currency in amount of up to 30 rubles per person. So you were allowed to trade 30 rubles for foreign currency. So it's, as I mentioned earlier, about $50. Then on the top of it, you can have another 30 rubles with you. So that's if you, for example, staying on a ship, like cruise ship, so you can buy goods at the bar or gift shop. And there's another primечание, another comment. So Soviet citizens temporarily live in the Soviet Union into NRB, VNR, GDR, MNR, PNR, SSRR, USSR. So that's the list of other socialist republics. So Bulgarian People's Republic, Hungarian People's Republic, German Democratic Republic, Mongolian People's Republic, Polish People's Republic, SRR. My goodness, I am not sure what that republic. You would think to be Yugoslavia, but it's not, because Yugoslavia starts with U. So there's another republic, if you guys know what it is, SRR, and CSSR, Czechoslovak Soviet Socialist Republic. So with those 30 rubles that you take alone, you are allowed to trade your rubles for the local currency, but it's all you have, just 30 rubles, even if you visit several countries at once. And of course, there should be warnings. So if you tell customs the wrongful information about what you have, if you try to hide something, or if you try to carry with you items that you want to give to other people across the Soviet border and under disguise as your own items, you will be responsible according to the current laws of the Soviet Union. The main custom management office of the Ministry of the Foreign Trade of the USSR. And this concludes my review of the Soviet-era Spravka for Soviet tourists going abroad. As you see, this list is quite intense, and you kind of get feeling what kind of items people were trying to smuggle out of the country so they can trade it and buy some decent goods. And there were more stories about, I can tell you about all the kind of ways that people still, if there's the will, there's the way. So you can also bring out only 2 bottles of vodka, but hey, you could still buy alcohol on a cruise ship. So after you trade your vodka, if you're not alcoholic and drink it yourself, you stop at the port, you trade your vodka for local currency, then you still got 30 rubles. You can buy more vodka at the bar at the cruise ship to trade it at the next stop. So there are many ways. Some of them hilarious. I'll make a separate video on that topic, but this is what pretty much Soviet tourists had to deal with while trying to leave the USSR for 10-15 days. Okay, my friends, it's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe learned something new. If you did, don't forget to like this video, maybe share with your friends, and we'll talk to you soon. До побачення. Goodbye.